Hey, what is up, YouTube? It's CJ. Welcome back for another quick update on the 120-gallon Reef, and also a very, very rare occasion that I've been able to get in front of the camera and actually talk to you guys face to face. So first, before we get going, I want to thank everyone for the 15,000 subscribers that we've been able to accomplish. Haven't had a chance to really officially put it out there in the video, but you guys are appreciated. We're gonna keep climbing. You know, I'm always gonna be the guy with the cell phone and the fish tank, and as long as I keep doing what I do, you guys keep following, doing what y'all do, who knows what this channel could become or turn into. So with that being said, this update is going to be all about the SPS in my tank. You know, all the acros, everything that I've added over the last few months, my experiences, you know, everything that's happened over that time, some good, a lot bad, but nonetheless, we're going to share it, we're going to talk about it, and hopefully save you guys some money, some headaches, some trouble, you know, maybe even encourage you guys to try SPS if you decide to go that route. So, you know, I want to address one other thing really quick, because a lot of you guys have been noticing the mugs, and a lot of you guys were just, you know, subscribing, don't know about these. The Be Eazy mugs are coming back. Be Eazy mugs and shirts are actually coming back. I got two different colors for his and hers. Be Eazy on the front, keep doing what you do on the back. So if you guys are interested, want a little morning inspiration with your cup of joe, I'm gonna put the link in the description below, the purchase your Be Eazy mugs, so you can keep doing what you do, right? So before we get going too far on this update, I want to take you guys across the bridge to a different LFS I have not had a chance to actually share with you all. One that I've been familiar with, and I actually known the owner since he was in this basement when I first started in the hobby with the 37-gallon marine cube tank, Blue Star Aquatics. So let's go ahead and get over there. We'll come back and finish the rest of what's happened in the 120-gallon. So after about a 25 or 30 minute ride, having to cross the bridge and pay that stupid toll, we have finally arrived at Blue Star Aquatics. Now I gotta admit to you guys, haven't been over here for a little chunk of time, maybe a year or so, mainly due to the distance. You know, it's literally across the river in a different state. Too many other options that are closer to me, but today, you know, was the day I was close enough to him to come visit Blue Star Aquatics. Now, for those that are familiar, it's in Clarksville, Indiana, and the funny part is, I met the owner of this store years ago when I had my first reef tank, that 37-gallon Marineland cube. He was just a basement guy, someone with a dream of, you know, upgrading and having a store of its own, and he had all the tanks, and I would have discussions with him as far as what his plans was. And it's just funny to see years later, everything come to fruition, and he has his own store. So definitely a good thing, and I'm happy to come out and support whenever I get the chance. Now, as I walked around the store and checked out all the different tanks, I had to make sure I recorded this guy for you all. How cool is this? A red feather starfish. Never seen one of these things in my life, and I had the joy of recording it. This is kind of a once in a lifetime thing. I doubt I'll ever see something like this again in person. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this, and if you had an experience of keeping these, or, you know, if you want to try keeping them or anything you may know about them, drop it in the comments below. You know, from what I understand, very difficult to keep, you know, mainly due to their food requirements and different things. So that one was not for sale, it was just for the LFS, but, you know, definitely something cool to share with you all. Now, as far as all the other tanks, everything is pretty clean in this store. I didn't see anything as far as algae or outage or anything that will make me, you know, want to walk out without anything in my hands. So one thing I will definitely say, amongst anything else, is the prices. The prices in this place are dirt cheap. It's almost like he kept the prices from his basement and just moved them over to the store. Literally half to a third of the cost of corals closer to me. So, you know, for that reason and that reason alone, I will always be willing to drive across the bridge just to see what he has over here. And luckily, I did find something over here, a few things that I've been looking for a while, but we'll cover that in a future video. For now, just want to give you guys a look. Now, from what I can understand, you know, this wasn't a day a shipment came in, so a lot of the tanks were not really stocked, but I was happy to see the pride that the lady that was working here took in maintaining the store. You know, she was cleaning everything as I was there. Not just because I was recording, but because, you know, she just loved her job. So definitely good people, a great store. And if you guys are in the Louisville area or Indiana area, definitely swing by and check it out. All out of sauce. It's all right, because we're gonna go ahead and finish the SPS update, the debacle, the demise, and everything that went wrong when I killed a majority, well, not a majority, but a lot of the SPS in my system, where they all went from being colorful, promising, encrusting to dead skeletons, you know, skinless, white, and just pretty much a reminder of the failure. I'm gonna keep this guy because this is an important lesson for me in the hobby of trying to avoid this happening again. Now, what happened in my system? As a series of events, I'm gonna share with you all that you guys will probably be surprised that I even did this, but I'm human, not perfect, definitely not an expert when it comes to this hobby, and definitely a novice when it comes to SPS, especially acros. So I'll start off the story with this. The tank was doing so well that I felt like I wanted to try something different and improve it. So down in the filtration, I ended up wanting to add Miracle Mud. Now, adding the Miracle Mud, I'll cover that later. It was a great thing. But what I did before I added it, I think kicked off a series of events in my system that caused instability, caused issues, and definitely led to this. So I ended up removing the pond matrix in my system, putting it in media bags to, you know, make it easier to manage, to make room for the Miracle Mud, etc. But when doing so, I released a ton of detritus, sediment, you know, poop, whatever the case may be, that was caught in that pond matrix in my sump. It ended up going throughout my entire sump, throughout my display, and basically released all those nutrients in my system. That was the first mistake. I should have approached that differently. Isolating my sump to where I cleaned a lot of that detritus out first, not letting it spread everywhere, not making a big mess. Second mistake had to do with my skimmer. Now, along the lines of hanging out with live streams and you know, researching the different things, I've come to learn that skimmers also take out good and bad. And in my system, I wanted to keep more of the good. So I was thinking, hey, my skimmer is skimming a lot out. Whenever I'm adding my amino acids, the next day I'm seeing a bunch of skimmate in the cup. So it got to be removing the aminos. So maybe put a little bit of the skimmate in my system. So that's what I did. Removed the plug on the skimmer cup. It started draining into the sump, but instead of just capping it right away, it felt so good. You know, I felt like this is a great thing. I'm adding these nutrients back to my system, those aminos, you know, those nitrates, whatever the case may be, for the system to help it, you know, thrive and be healthier, because I wanted to add what I thought I was missing. Well, ultimately, guys, it turned into a big foam pit in my sump. Skimmer was going crazy. The display tank turned into a big cloud of just nastiness, and that led to deaths as far as my acros. I lost 2 or 3 corals during that event. Now, the third mistake I made was light acclimation. I decided to turn the lights up somewhat to where they were before I added the corals. You know, I had the right idea when I added these corals. Turn my lights way down from the normal 70 to 100% blue down to 30% blue, you know, 1% white for about 4 or 5 days. Then I decided to bump them up. During the bump up, it was too soon. I bumped them up maybe 20%, lost 2 acros right away. So we're already at about a handful of acros just from those 3 things. So the story gets worse. It keeps going. After adding the skimmate, panicked, decided to try to remove those extra nutrients via water change. So I did 2 consecutive water changes over the course of around 5 days, 20-gallon or so water changes, to where I filled the tank with you know, fresh salt water, siphoned the sump out with it. The second water change, filled the tank with fresh salt water, then siphoned my sand bed with it. Ultimately cleaned it up, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I cleaned it up too much, meaning my nutrients went all the way down to 0. So this is where the new battle began, because after I did that water change, I lost more corals. You guys are wondering, like, what is going on here? Every single thing CJ doing is leading to deaths, and that's what I was thinking too. This led to, I would say, 6 or 7 consecutive days of coming home from work and seeing a dead coral or a stripping coral or a bleaching coral. Very, very, very aggravating. Now, what did I do now? I've bleached my tank as far as lighting. I've bleached my tank as far as too many nutrients. Now I'm bleaching my tank because of too little nutrients. So the plan kicked off of getting nutrients back in my system, meaning modifying my filtration. So I decided to turn the algae scrubber back down from 16 hours on a day to 4 hours or 5 hours on a day, basically cutting its production down. I also decided to raise my skimmer, actually turn my skimmer off for a couple of days towards stop skimming, and then eventually raising the skimmer to where it would have a drier skim, or I can tune it drier, figuring that if I slow down my export, then the excess nutrients will be available in my system. And it worked. That actually worked. I was able to get a reading on my phosphates and my nitrates. I was able to see some positive effects in my system. So now the story starts getting better, guys. So at this point, the tank's doing better, and I finally got the Miracle Mud in my hands as far as coming in the mail, and I was able to actually add it to the system. So I was already getting a rise in nutrients. Things were looking better. In comes the Miracle Mud, and things got a lot better. Now, this is the part that a lot of people are wondering, what's Miracle Mud? Miracle Mud is the magical stuff that comes from the clouds. No, I'm just joking. From what I understand, it is mud that's collected from the ocean that's also had some added ingredients of I don't know what, for releasing trace elements, minerals, good stuff, nutrients, whatever the case may be, into your system. Also serves as a biological filter if you choose to use it for that. Me, I'm not, but it has multiple purposes that benefit your system. Your coral, your fish, and your vertebrates, everything. So when I added this mud, one of the first things I noticed was a huge boom in my pod population. Now, you guys know I've always had pods, but this was different. The pods are a lot more open. They're a lot more in the open as far as walking around the sump, eating detritus, whatever the case may be. And also the shrimp in my system. The shrimp took a huge turn as far as their bravery. These guys are out in the open. They're jumping from one rock to the next, swimming, to the glass and back, right past the wrass's face. They're on top of the scape. They're all over the place. Now, this was not happening before I added that mud. I don't know what it was that triggered it, but that mud definitely made a difference when it comes to my invertebrates. And also, during this time, we started our spree of good news. The good news meaning no more this. No more consecutive days of coming back to this. Have not lost a coral since. I'm going on 5 or 6 days now since I've increased my nutrients and added the Miracle Mud to where the tank is looking nice and healthier. Corals are definitely looking happier. LPS are plump. And more importantly, the SPS are looking great. I haven't lost any. Now, I'm not seeing a lot of polyp extension on all of them yet, but I'm not losing any. So I'm going to give you guys a quick look at some of the closer SPS that I did lose and some I didn't, and some that are encrusting, some that are doing well. I'll give you guys a look at those as well here in a moment. But as far as what is going to happen next, at this point, the plan is to just chill out for a second. Let things be, meaning kick my filtration back on, keep testing my parameters, keep testing my nitrates, keep testing my phosphates, keep testing my alkalinity, my magnesium, and all those things, and keep track of everything. Because when I approached this SPS, when I got all these corals, one of the main things that I was focused on was my alkalinity, was my the big three as far as the consumption. What I was not focused on was what happens with the nutrients in your system. So that's a whole nother battle. That's a whole nother level of balance that I'm trying to learn in my system. Balancing what they're using as far as what I'm supplementing with the calcium reactor, as far as those alkalinities, magnesium, calcium, trace elements, and also balancing what they need as far as my nutrients in my system, actually keeping nitrates and phosphates available in my system for the corals. So, and at the same time, understanding how the fish are actually contributing to those nutrients, to how my filtration is contributing to reducing or exporting those nutrients, and trying to find a balance between everything for those things to all coexist and work together. Meaning if I change one thing, it affects everything. If I add fish, it affects everything. If I decide to turn my skimmer off, it affects everything. Everything affects everything. in my system, and learning that and trying to understand that is the goal right now. So I would say the biggest lesson I've learned from this is slow your roll, big fella. You know, try not to do too much too fast, which is very hard for me. And whatever you do, don't panic and do a quick change, a quick reaction. As the saying goes, nothing happens good in this hobby if you do it too quick. You know, everything good happens over time or slow, but you got to allow it to happen that way. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, you know, little segment with me and the lazy boy in the chair. You know, it's different talking this way instead of voiceovering, because I know I left out a lot of details that I probably wanted to mention, but I'll go through and subtitle that for you all for things I know I missed. But other than that, I want to remind you all, the reef tank's still here. It's still going. I got more corals coming, including new lighting that's coming, new equipment that I'm going to be adding on the system. So tons and tons of new things coming on this system, and we're going to keep it rolling. So as always, hey, you guys keep doing what you do. Y'all be easy. Don't forget your mug. Happy reefing. Peace.